there's a short life in
Why do you think that is? What the creative side is?
Well, because losing out money, you got to take. You're going through so much to try and deal with life.
Pop star Aaron Carter has at the age of 34.
Yeah, the troubled performer grew up in the limelight, but he was in and out of rehab several times.
The news of Aaron Carter's passing hit like a lightning bolt, leaving fans, friends, and family grasping for answers. But as the initial shock settled, what emerged were not just mourning tributes, but a cascade of questions, suspicions, and outright accusations. What truly happened to the former teen idol in the final days of his tumultuous life? The official narrative paints a picture of a tragic accident, but the details surrounding his demise are anything but straightforward. And the whispers? Oh, they're deafening. They don't just hint at negligence or coincidence. They suggest something much darker, something deliberate.
Yeah, Rick, MB, the street is now cleared. People have been moving in and out of that home behind me all day. And tonight we heard from some of those closest to Aaron Carter, and they all say the same thing. They all share stories of a very kind, loving, caring, humble, yet troubled young man.
Aaron Carter, once the baby-faced heartthrob of the early 2000s, had grown up in the glare of fame's unrelenting spotlight. But by the time of his passing, that spotlight had turned harsh, revealing a life marred by struggles, estrangements, and an industry that seemed to chew him up and spit him out. His body was found in his home, submerged in a tub of water, and the coroner's report tied the incident to unfortunate circumstances involving substances. On the surface, it seemed like a tragic but sadly familiar tale in the entertainment world. Yet almost immediately, Aaron's family began poking holes in the story. And when his mother, Jane Schneck, stepped forward with allegations of foul play, the narrative took a sharp turn. Jane didn't mince words. She called out what she saw as glaring inconsistencies in how the scene was handled and demanded a deeper investigation. Why, she asked, were the towels in the bathroom so meticulously placed? Why was the water in the tub an unsettling green? And why on earth weren't authorities treating the space as a potential crime scene? These weren't just idle questions from a grieving mother. They were accusations that the truth was being swept under the rug. She went even further, claiming that Aaron had been receiving ominous threats in the weeks leading up to his passing. Threats, she believed, that painted a chilling picture of premeditated harm.
It's very painful. Very, very painful. I talked to him 2 weeks ago. He was at the dentist and he FaceTimed me. He said, come over. And I said, I have work to do. I wish I could have just go see him at least one more time.
Then there's the footage Aaron himself left behind. Just days before his demise, the singer posted an unsettling video on social media, speaking cryptically about people who were out to get him. He hinted at having evidence locked away, evidence that could expose powerful figures and their alleged misdeeds. If something happens to me, he said in the video, his voice tinged with both fear and defiance, know that I didn't do this to myself. It was a haunting statement that, in hindsight, feels like a warning no one took seriously enough. And the so-called evidence he hinted at? Rumors swirled that it involved recordings, audio and video that could implicate some of the entertainment industry's biggest names in acts too scandalous to describe outright. Among these rumors, one name keeps surfacing: Sean Diddy Combs. The mogul, who once seemed untouchable with his empire of music, fashion, and nightlife, now finds himself at the epicenter of a legal hurricane. Diddy's facing charges that could redefine how Hollywood and the music industry deal with their darker corners. And while his troubles are vast and varied, it's the whispers tying him to Aaron Carter's demise that have ignited a firestorm online. Could it be true? Could one of the most influential figures in entertainment have played a role, directly or indirectly, in silencing someone who might have known too much?
What is that? What do you mean by that?
You give up your ability, your right to being a man. A man don't take it, a man gives it. So when you give up that man card, you don't get that back.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
No, I'm saying what I'm saying.
Let's not forget the infamous freak-off parties that have now become central to the allegations against Diddy. These events, once whispered about as the stuff of urban legend, are now being dragged into the light. Lavish, exclusive, and shrouded in secrecy, they were reportedly playgrounds for the powerful and the privileged. But behind glitz and glamour, insiders describe a much seedier reality, one where boundaries were blurred and rules didn't seem to apply. Aaron, it seems, had been pulled into this world, or at least brushed against its edges. And if his cryptic video is to be believed, he may have been in possession of evidence that could blow the lid off everything. But evidence isn't the only thing that connects Aaron to this shadowy universe. His mother has gone on record saying that Aaron felt trapped, manipulated, and used by powerful figures in the industry. He was young, naive, and desperate to reclaim the fame he once had. And in an industry where desperation is currency, it's not hard to imagine how someone like Aaron could be exploited. Jane Schnick has hinted that Aaron was trying to break free from these influences in the weeks before his passing. He was reportedly planning to release a tell-all book and had been speaking to journalists about his experiences. Was this why, she wonders aloud, he became a target?
That was all the people that went to the Puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Get punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man. So I believe that's a big problem with a lot of the actors out there because they get fluid. And next thing you know, once you go fluid,
Adding to the intrigue is the strange behavior of those closest to Aaron in his final days. His fiancée, Melanie Martin, has pointed out that his phone, a device he was reportedly never without, was found not in the house but in his car. Why would he have left it there? And then there's the housekeeper who discovered his body. Melanie claims that this individual had been acting suspiciously in the days leading up to Aaron's demise, even failing to respond to texts and calls from concerned family members. Who was this person, and why haven't we heard more about them? The deeper you dig, the stranger this story becomes. Melanie also noted that Aaron rarely used the bathtub where he was found. He preferred the shower, she said, and always locked the bathroom door when he was inside. Yet on that fateful day, the door was unlocked, and the scene inside was chaotic. Towels strewn about, water discolored, and most disturbingly, what appeared to be deliberate staging. It's almost as if someone wanted it to look a certain way, to tell a story that might not align with what actually happened.
She hadn't seen him all day Friday, and then decided she always gave him coffee in the morning, made coffee for him. So she went to his door, his bedroom door, and knocked on it, and then heard the dog in an extremely agitated state inside Aaron's bedroom. And that's when she decided she would open the door, and she discovered him. But it looks, Brad, like he had been...
Of course, the official narrative remains unchanged. Authorities insist there's no evidence of foul play and the case has been closed as an accidental tragedy. But Jane Schnick isn't buying it, and neither are the legions of fans and internet sleuths who have taken up the cause. They point to the timing of Aaron's demise, the cryptic messages he left behind, and the powerful names that keep surfacing in connection to his life as reasons to keep digging. And the more you look, the more questions arise. Why was Aaron so adamant that he was in danger? What was on those tapes he claimed to have? And why does Diddy's name keep coming up in conversations about manipulation, control, and silence? What's clear is that this story is far from over. The threads connecting Aaron Carter's tragic end to the allegations against Diddy are tenuous but tantalizing, and as more details emerge, the picture only grows darker. Are we looking at a series of unfortunate coincidences, or is there a larger, more sinister narrative at play? For now, all we have are questions, suspicions, and a growing sense that the truth, whatever it may be, has yet to fully come to light.
No, I get it. So you see some guys struggling with that. You see Bieber struggling with that. You see some of these guys struggling with that.
They can't get it out of their head. They can't get it out of their head.
And that's when everything exploded. The courtroom was supposed to be the place where Sean Diddy Combs could fight back, where his high-powered legal team could finally take control of the narrative. But instead, it became a theater of chaos, with each revelation more jaw-dropping than the last. The tapes. That's what everyone was waiting for. The ones investigators had seized during those dramatic raids on his properties. The ones that insiders whispered about like a dirty little secret. And when the prosecution revealed just a fraction of what was on them, there was an audible gasp across the room. It wasn't just the content that sent shockwaves, it was the implications. They weren't just tapes, they were time bombs. The recordings, allegedly spanning years, painted a disturbing picture of excess, manipulation, and unchecked power. These weren't just videos of wild parties, they were meticulously staged spectacles, every detail planned down to the lighting and the bizarre collection of items stocked in the rooms ahead of time. Baby oil, specialized furniture, strange props. It was all there. The prosecution described them as productions, as if calling them parties would somehow downplay what they really were. But the most chilling detail? The cameras. They were always rolling, always. And the people caught on tape? Some of the biggest names in entertainment, singers, actors, athletes, icons who now found themselves tangled in a web they may never escape.
Did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no to it?
Hell yeah.
What was the consequences when you said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at me.
But what really set the courtroom ablaze was a suggestion of how these tapes were used. According to the indictment, they weren't just for private enjoyment. They were leverage. Diddy, it seems, had created an archive of secrets, a vault of compromising material that could destroy careers and reputations at the push of a button. And he wasn't shy about wielding that power. Witnesses came forward, some anonymously, describing how they were threatened with the release of footage if they didn't comply with his demands. Others claimed they didn't even know they'd been filmed until years later, when they received cryptic warnings to stay in line. One former associate who spoke under the condition of anonymity described the atmosphere surrounding these gatherings as cult-like. He detailed how guests, many of whom were lured in with promises of career opportunities, quickly realized they were pawns in a much larger game. You'd walk in thinking it was going to be a regular night, and then you'd see the setup, the cameras, the props, the people who were already there looking like they'd seen too much. It wasn't a party, it was something else entirely, and once you were in, you couldn't just walk away. And then there was the money trail. Oh, the money. Prosecutors painted a picture of an intricate system designed to fund these events and keep anyone from talking. Payments disguised as business expenses, shell companies funneling cash through offshore accounts, hush money buried deep in the ledgers of his sprawling empire. It was all there, laid out in painstaking detail. And the more they uncovered, the more it became clear that this wasn't just about Diddy. It was about an entire ecosystem that enabled him, protected him, and profited alongside him.
Will you help me? I want to hear your music, so I come over there and I play the music. And he's sitting there, just looking at me, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to you. That's what my assistant said. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I get it. So now no more communication.
But let's talk about the parallels to Jeffrey Epstein, because that's the comparison everyone's making, and for good reason. Like Epstein, Diddy is accused of using his wealth and influence to build a network of enablers who helped him operate in plain sight. The private jets, the sprawling homes, the exclusive events attended by the who's who of Hollywood, it all feels eerily familiar. And just like Epstein, Diddy's alleged crimes weren't confined to the shadows. They were right there, hiding in the open, protected by the very systems that should have held him accountable.
Here at Epstein's Palm Beach home is where much of the alleged abuse took place. According to court documents, as far back as 2001.
It's impossible to ignore how Epstein's case rewrote the rules of what the public believed was possible. A high-profile, well-connected man operating a network of corruption and exploitation so vast, it felt more like the plot of a thriller than real life. Epstein's influence stretched across continents, from private islands in the Caribbean to Manhattan's elite social circles. And yet, for years, whispers about his activities were dismissed as outlandish rumors. It wasn't until the house of cards came crashing down that the world realized how deep his connections truly ran. The web of enablers, the intricate financial maneuvers, and the complicity of those who turned a blind eye. Sound familiar? The comparisons to Diddy aren't just surface level. They suggest a repeat of the same unchecked power that allowed Epstein to operate for decades. What's more, much like Epstein had his infamous Little Black Book, which held the names of powerful figures allegedly tied to his exploits, Diddy's so-called vault of recordings has become a focal point of this case. Investigators are reportedly combing through what's been described as a treasure trove of damning evidence, tapes that allegedly document years of excess and exploitation. The chilling part, just as Epstein's contact list implicated everyone from politicians to Hollywood royalty, the names tied to Diddy's recordings are rumored to be just as explosive. And while Epstein's downfall revealed a network of individuals scrambling to distance themselves, the same pattern seems to be emerging here. The silence from some of Diddy's former associates is deafening, while others are rushing to claim ignorance, insisting they had no idea what was happening behind closed doors.
Convicted offender Jeffrey Epstein remains behind bars today on the latest child charges lodged against him. Epstein's arrest.
And then there's the question of whether justice will truly be served. If Epstein's case taught us anything, it's that wealth and influence can delay accountability, sometimes indefinitely. Even now, years after his alleged crimes came to light, many of those connected to him have largely escaped unscathed. Sure, Ghislaine Maxwell faced trial, but what about the others? The power brokers and socialites who attended his lavish gatherings, who flew on his private plane. The parallels here are striking, and they raise a difficult question. Will Diddy's trial merely scratch the surface, or will it go deeper, pulling back the curtain on an entire system of abuse hiding in plain sight? And let's not forget the people who were supposed to be his friends, his allies, his inner circle. Where are they now? Some have distanced themselves with lightning speed, issuing carefully worded statements about their shock and dismay. Others have gone radio silent, their social media accounts scrubbed clean of any mention of him. But a few, just a few, have been dragged into the spotlight, their names popping up in court documents and whispered conversations. And the question on everyone's mind is the same. How much did they know? Were they victims too, or were they complicit? Take Terrence Howard, for example. The actor, known for his no-nonsense persona, recently hinted at unsettling encounters with Diddy that left him questioning everything. Howard's comments, while vague, have only added fuel to the fire, leaving fans and critics alike wondering just how deep this rabbit hole goes.
So, Terrence Howard appeared on the PBD podcast with Patrick Bet-David, and the episode, this premiered on April 4th. Definitely making the rounds because in this episode, Terrence Howard describes an interaction with Diddy where he says that he believes that Diddy was trying to have with him. Let's take a look.
But the most unsettling part of all this? The unresolved dynamics, because for every question answered, 10 more take its place. What about the celebrities caught on tape? What happens to their careers, their reputations, their families? And what about the people who haven't come forward yet, the ones who are too scared or too ashamed to speak out? How many more lives were affected by this, and how many more secrets are still buried, waiting to be unearthed? And then there's the industry itself. This isn't just about one man, it's about the culture that allowed him to thrive. The culture that turned a blind eye to the warning signs and prioritized profits over people. How many more Diddys are out there, hiding behind their fame and fortune, convinced they're untouchable? And how many more Aaron Carters are out there, crying for help in a world that refuses to listen until it's too late?
This is Jeffrey Epstein, multimillionaire, hedge fund manager, businessman with famous, powerful friends, and also convicted.
So what's next? Will this be the scandal that finally forces the entertainment industry to clean house, or will it all fade away, another headline lost in the churn of the 24-hour news cycle? One thing's for sure, the public isn't letting this go, not this time, not with the stakes this high and the implications this far-reaching. But what do you think? Is this just the tip of the iceberg, or are we finally seeing the whole picture? And more importantly, what happens now? Let us know your thoughts down below, and we'll catch you in the next one.